full stack MERN project from beginning to end. We're going to create a web application that we can use to keep track of athletes, maybe like a fan page. And this is going to implement full create, retrieve, /read, update, and delete capabilities, and we'll have different views. So we're going to start off on the front end, then go to the back end, and then talk about how we can link the two. So I'm going to create a new project, but first I'm going to create a folder. And let me create this folder. I'll call it athletes. Athletes. I'll CD into it, and now I'm going to create React app client. This will take some time, so I'm going to pause. All right, so after your React app has been created, I'm going to open it in my code editor. And here's my React project. So I'm going to come over to the README and just talk about how we're actually going to structure this React project. I'm going to create views, and there will be 4 of them. Remember, these are just the pages in our application. So the first view will be the index page. And this will list the athletes in my database, and the URL or the route will be /. Then there will be a create page, a form to create an athlete, route will be /create, a detail page, a page to actually see the details of an athlete with links to edit or delete, and then an edit page, a page to edit an athlete in the database with a delete button as well. This will be, route will be /ID of the athlete /edit, and up here will be the route /ID. All right, so those are the views we're going to create, and we're going to have components as well. And these are reusable components that we're going to use throughout our project. One of them is going to be a form. The form that we will use on the create page and the edit page. And then the delete button, which will make an API call to delete an athlete. And we'll use that throughout our project whenever we actually want to. And once we create this, we can use it in our edit page, our detail page, and we may actually want to be able to have that in our index page. All right, so now that we have that, I'm actually going to, let me save the README and close it, or I'll keep it open so we can refer back to it. Open a new terminal, and then I'm going to CD into client, and then npm install reach router, because we actually want to be able to route to create each one of these pages and views. So I'm going to once again pause and wait for this to finish. Okay, so reach router finished installing. So I'm going to come over to my app.js and actually create that router. And remember, we're going to have to import router from reach router. So remember, we're going to have 4 different views. So I'm going to come over here and create my views folder, and I'll start off with my first one, which will be the index view.js. Let me import React from React, index view, We return the div, and this will say H1 athletes, okay? Because it's gonna list out all of the athletes in my database. I'm gonna come back over here, and let me actually, so I don't need this anymore. After I have that done, let me npm run start to actually make sure that this is working. And in the meantime, let me export default index view and then come over here and import. And I'm gonna say path equals slash, there we go. So what we just did is we created this index view, and this will just be the root, and we're gonna have a list of all the athletes. We exported it, and then we put it within our router so that when we go to slash, it will actually show us the view that says all of our athletes. So it should be up and running. We bring this over here, and refresh, and there we go. We have our athletes. Great. And let's just get ready for it. This will be a list. I'm just gonna put one in right now, and we'll just say John Smith. Let's say there will be an edit button. Actually, we'll just say John Smith for the time being. So we come back to our page, we see John Smith. Great. Now that we have our index view or our list, you can think of this as our list view, let's do our create view. Remember, this is going to have a form that we'll end up creating as a component. Let me return create a new athlete. Let me export default create view. Come back over here, create view, make sure that it imports path equals slash create. So let me come back to this. I go to slash create. Now we have create a new athlete. Perfect. Let's now create the detail view. Import React from React. Detail view equals. Let me return H1. This is a view about athlete. And then we're gonna have to put some information. For the time being, I'm just gonna put an ID and I'll destructure it. Because remember, if we come back to our README, our detail page is slash ID. And with reach router, we're gonna come over here. Looks like we didn't export it. Default detail view. Come back over here. And detail view. Slash ID. Let me make sure it's imported. Sometimes it'll auto import depending on how you actually are typing. But now we have this detail view, which will be a slash some ID, okay? And when we come to detail view, it should say this is a view about athlete with the ID that we're passing in. So if I go to slash 5, we see this is a view about athlete with the ID 5. Great. The last thing we're going to create is an edit view. Once again, let's import React from React. Edit view equals props. Return div. We are editing, oh, let me put this in the header. We are editing athlete with an ID. And this will be ID equals props. And let's make sure export default edit view. This is a common thing to forget, so just make sure you do that. If not, you'll notice pretty quickly that it won't work. ID/edit. And notice how I did it there, it actually auto-imported. All right, so we just set up our 4 views. An index, which will list them, a create, which will allow us to create a new one, a detail, which will show us details about a specific one, and then an edit, which will allow us to edit a specific athlete. So now if I go to /5/edit, we're editing athlete 5. Okay, we have that. Now let's create, Let's create our components. We'll create a new folder in source called components, and I'll say form.js. This is going to be included in our create and our edit view. I'm going to return a form. Let me export default form. Okay, once we have this, we can actually start thinking about what we want our form to be. Well, our athlete will have a few things. A first name, an input type equal to text, name equal to first name, then we'll have a last name, we'll have a sport, and we'll have a team. We also need a submit button. So now that we have this form set up and we're exporting it, we can include it in our edit and create view. So let me just put the form in here. And once again, this one auto-imported for me, but if it didn't, make sure you are importing it. And then in our create view, we'll put the form as well. Okay. So now on our edit, we have this form. And it should also appear on our create. Perfect. So the last thing we need in our front end is going to be our delete button. And what this is going to do is a button that for the time being will just have a button in here that says delete, but eventually we'll end up setting up the component so it has an API call that will actually delete a certain athlete. So let's just return a button that says delete. And this will export default delete button. Okay. So we'll probably, like we said, we want our detail page to have a delete button and then our edit page to have a delete button. So let's come back over here and have a delete button in our detail view, a delete button in our edit view, and we could actually put it in our index as well if we wanted to, let's say, loop through and have a delete button. So let's say for each one we want a delete button. And let's say we actually wanted to link to the edit. We'll say a link. This will be to, and because we don't really have IDs yet, I'll just hard code 5, edit, and I'll say edit. And then we should probably link to the detail page here too. Link to equals /5. And this link is coming from reach router. So if we come back to our index view, we should be able to go to the detail view. This is a view about athlete. We have a delete button here. Perfect. We have an edit view, which we have a submit and a delete button. The only thing we're missing now is to be able to have a button here, let's say for user experience, to be able to create a new one. So there should be some sort of a link here in our index to create, and we'll say add athlete. We come back here, we can add the athlete, and there we go. Edit, perfect. So now we've actually set up the front end structure. Let's move into creating our server-side code.